What you're about to hear was never supposed to go public. A quiet courtside whisper, a leaked clip, and suddenly the entire NBA started saying out loud what many had been thinking in private. This isn't just about Bronny James. This is about pressure, privilege, and whether one of the most talked about young players in basketball actually belongs in the league right now. Because from NBA superstars to Hall of Famers to the loudest voices in sports media, the message has been surprisingly consistent, and some of it absolutely brutal. It all started with a moment that changed everything. Jaylen Brown's courtside whisper. Jaylen Brown, a finals MVP, a respected voice in the league, wasn't trying to go viral. He wasn't giving an interview. He wasn't making a statement. He was just sitting courtside at Summer League in Las Vegas, watching a game, relaxed, off guard, private moment, until it wasn't. A fan's camera picked up Brown leaning in and saying something that instantly lit the internet on fire. "I don't think Bronny is a pro." That's it. One sentence, but it hit like an explosion. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, nonstop debate. Some fans called it honest. Others called it disrespectful. Even Paul Pierce later admitted something important. Brown probably wasn't the only one thinking it. He was just the one who got caught. To his credit, Brown didn't run from it. He quickly posted online praising LeBron James and calling it an incredible moment to see a father and son share the NBA. Clean, polished, smart damage control. But here's the thing about moments like that, they don't disappear. And LeBron, he definitely didn't forget. LeBron's response, a year later, fast forward to 2026. After a Lakers loss to Boston, LeBron was asked about Jaylen Brown. At first, his answer sounded respectful. "Our relationship has been pretty good." Then came the shift. Besides what he said about Bronny at Summer League, just one word, besides, but it changed everything. Because that wasn't forgotten, that was remembered. Charles Barkley says it loud. If Jaylen Brown whispered, Charles Barkley shouted. The Hall of Famer didn't go after Bronny personally. He went after the situation, specifically how the Lakers were handling him. Bronny was reportedly playing only G League home games, skipping road trips, and Barkley made it very clear, you don't get better sitting on the bench. Think about that. Other young players, grinding, traveling, fighting for contracts. Bronny, different schedule, different system, and to Barkley, that wasn't development. That was protection. The players who didn't hold back then came former NBA players, and they didn't filter anything. Charlie Villanueva reacted to reports that Bronny received all-star votes, and he laughed. Come on, there's no way. He brought up Bronny's college stats, around 4 to 5 points per game at USC, then dropped the line that went viral, 2 votes, 1 from LeBron, 1 from him. Not confirmed, but it spread like wildfire. Right next to him, Theo Pinson didn't sugarcoat anything. There's no way he should be in the NBA. His argument wasn't just about skill, it was about fairness. Players without connections grind for years. So the real question became, is Bronny earning this or benefiting from his last name? DeMarcus Cousins questions the Lakers. DeMarcus Cousins took a different angle. He didn't attack Bronny directly. He questioned the Lakers' intentions. "I don't think the Lakers are serious anymore." That's heavy. To him, drafting Bronny wasn't about winning. It was about legacy, a moment, a story, not a championship move. Chandler Parsons goes viral. Then came Chandler Parsons, and he turned one moment into a viral headline. Reacting to Bronny receiving all-star votes, he said, "If you want to look like a fool and vote for Bronny, put your name on it." His issue, not Bronny, the system, anonymous voting allowed decisions nobody would publicly defend. Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron, the breaking point. Then everything escalated because Stephen A. Smith didn't just comment on the situation, he pushed it hard. His message stayed the same. Bronny is not ready. And he said something that hit even harder. "I'm pleading with LeBron as a father. Stop this." That's when it got personal. March 2025, Lakers versus Knicks. LeBron walked up to Stephen A. Smith courtside, not smiling, not joking. According to Smith, LeBron said, "That's my son. Stop." That moment, it changed the entire conversation. By 2026, Stephen A. said it clearly, "We don't like each other." Dan Patrick keeps it simple. Not everyone was loud. Dan Patrick delivered one of the simplest and most effective critiques. When Bronny missed a team event, he said, "You're the last guy on the roster. You should be there. No insults, just reality. Earn your place." The media narrative grows. Analysts like Colin Cowherd and Doug Gottlieb pushed a bigger idea. This wasn't just about Bronny, it was about the NBA, a league in their view that struggles to be honest when it involves its biggest star. Cowherd said it bluntly, the NBA has to pretend or risk upsetting the king. The real story. Here's what makes this situation different. It's not one critic, it's not one moment, it's everyone. Players, analysts, media, legends, all pointing to the same question. Is Bronny James ready for the NBA right now? Final ending, strong retention close. Because here's the truth nobody talks about enough. Bronny didn't choose this pressure. He didn't choose the spotlight, but he's living in it. Every game watched, every stat judged, every mistake amplified, all because of one name, James. And the scary part, this story is just getting started. Now, to really understand how devastating this was, you have to look at the timing. Paul George is in his second season with the Philadelphia 76ers after signing a massive 4-year, approximately $212 million contract in July 2024. This was supposed to be the year that everything came together for the Sixers. They had their big three, George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey, and after years of heartbreak and playoff disappointments, Philly was finally supposed to be a serious contender. And here's the thing that makes it sting even more. Just 4 days before the suspension dropped, Paul George had played what many called his best game as a Sixer, dropping 32 points with 9 three-pointers against the Portland Trail Blazers on January 27th. He was cooking. He looked like the Paul George everybody remembered from his Indiana Pacers and LA Clippers days, and then boom, suspended. The league didn't say exactly what substance was involved. They cited privacy under the collective bargaining agreement, but the basketball world is smart. People know the rules. A 25-game suspension lines up perfectly with a first-time violation for what the NBA calls drugs of abuse, a category that includes substances like cocaine, methamphetamine, opioids, PCP, LSD, and ketamine. This is not the same as getting caught with marijuana, which barely gets you a slap on the wrist these days. And it's definitely not the same as performance-enhancing drugs like steroids, which carry an 80-game suspension for a first offense. So whatever Paul George took, it fell right in that middle category. Bad enough to get you 25 games, but not PED level bad. Now, Paul George knew he had to get in front of this, so he released a statement through ESPN's Shams Charania, and this is where things got interesting. He said, I've discussed the importance of mental health, and in the course of recently seeking treatment for an issue of my own, I made the mistake of taking an improper medication. And that right there is the part that made everybody pause. He framed the whole thing around mental health. He said he was seeking treatment, and along the way, he took something he wasn't supposed to take. Now, on the surface, that sounds like the right thing to say. He took responsibility, he apologized, but a lot of people in the media were not buying it, not even a little bit. Took some enhancement drugs to make you better on the court, but then you blame it on mental health. Can we just stop the man? Just admit it. You cheated. You need a little bit extra kicker. That reaction right there was shared by a lot of folks across the sports media landscape. The feeling was that Paul George was using mental health, something that is very real and very important, as a shield, as a way to soften the blow and make people feel sorry for him instead of holding him accountable. Just admit it. Just admit it. You're getting older here. You're feeling the weight of that contract. You want to make sure that you're a good player on the Philadelphia 76ers. And that's what a lot of people were thinking, but didn't want to say out loud. Paul George is 35 years old. He's battled injuries his entire career, foot surgeries, knee problems, shoulder issues, you name it. He just signed one of the biggest contracts in NBA history. The pressure to perform was immense. And maybe, just maybe, he took something to help himself feel better, play better, recover faster, and then tried to dress it up as a mental health issue when he got caught. I mean, the fact that he deflected and made it about mental health was just crazy. Just own it and move on, because Donnie, nobody will care in another week. But Paul George didn't just own it. He wrapped it in the language of mental health advocacy. And that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Now, here's the other side of this, the money side. The suspension cost George approximately $11.7 million in lost salary based on his $52.8 million salary for the season prorated per game. That is a staggering amount of money to lose. But for the Sixers ownership, this suspension actually created an opportunity. And that's where things get really interesting. See, before the suspension, the Sixers were sitting about $7 million over the luxury tax threshold. When a player gets suspended and isn't getting paid, that money doesn't count against your cap. So suddenly the Sixers went from being $7 million over to only about $1.25 million over the luxury tax line. And if you're Josh Harris, the owner of the 76ers, and you're looking at the reality of what your team is, you're doing the math real quick. You're thinking, we didn't do this. We didn't make a trade. Our player got suspended for his own mistake, and now we're just a sliver away from getting under the tax and saving ourselves millions. When you've got a team together that's finally winning, they put it together, you swallow hard, and you realize that you made the plan to be over. That's the reality of the business side of the NBA. Sometimes a player's mistake becomes an owner's opportunity. And with the trade deadline sitting right there on February 5th, the Sixers had a very real chance to make a move to duck under that luxury tax line entirely. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Because as bad as this was for Paul George and for the Sixers' on-court chemistry, something else happened in the aftermath that nobody predicted. Paul George's suspension, his explanation, his excuses, and the whole mess surrounding it accidentally ripped the lid off a conversation that the NBA has been trying to keep quiet for years. A conversation about who else in the league might be taking things they shouldn't be taking. A conversation about double standards. A conversation about the biggest name in basketball history. And that conversation was about to get very loud, very fast. The Whisper Network, LeBron James, and the Open Secret. Now, here's where the Paul George story takes a turn that nobody expected, because the moment PG got suspended and tried to explain it away with mental health, people in the basketball world started asking a very dangerous question. If Paul George gets suspended for 25 games for taking an improper medication, then why isn't the league looking at everybody else? And by everybody else, they didn't mean some role player on the bench. They meant LeBron James. This is not a new accusation. This is something that has been bubbling underneath the surface of professional basketball for years. But Paul George's suspension cracked the dam wide open and let everything flood out at once. So let's walk through exactly how this unfolded, because it involves some of the biggest names in sports, current players, retired legends, MMA fighters, and even the founder of the most infamous doping lab in American history. It starts with a man named Chael Sonnen. For those who don't know, Sonnen is a former UFC middleweight contender, an ESPN MMA analyst, and a man who has been very open about his own history with performance-enhancing drugs. He failed multiple drug tests during his fighting career, including a 2014